He was hungry, poor, and had nowhere to sleep. He was rich, powerful, and had everything money could buy. But when his car broke down in the middle of the road, she did something no one saw coming. How did one small act of kindness from a poor girl change a rich man's life forever? Sit back and find out as we dive into this powerful story. Music. This is the incredible true story of how a homeless girl helped a young billionaire, changing both their lives forever. It was a quiet evening in Abuja, Nigeria. The sky was slowly turning dark, and the road was empty. Joshua, a young, wealthy man, was driving home in his big black car. He'd just left a business meeting in a nearby town. His mind was racing, he was tired, and he just wanted to get home. Suddenly, his car made a strange sound. Joshua frowned. "What's going on now?" he muttered, turning down the air conditioner. The car abruptly stopped in the middle of the road. He turned the key again, nothing. He stepped out and looked around. There were no houses nearby, no other cars, no people, just silence. He checked the engine, but he didn't really know what he was looking at. He tried calling his mechanic, but there was no signal. The road remained quiet, with only the sound of wind blowing through the trees. He'd been standing there for almost 20 minutes, his white shirt now soaked with sweat. He was tired and a bit frustrated. Then, he saw something. Someone was walking on the other side of the road. It was a young lady, probably around 26 or 27. Her clothes were old and torn, and a small bag hung from her shoulder. Her hair was rough, and her worn-out slippers made her walk slowly, like someone who hadn't eaten all day. Joshua frowned at himself. Who walks here at this time? The lady, Stella, looked weak, her face showing both exhaustion and a quiet strength, like someone who had faced many hard days but was still standing. Stella had no home, no family in Abuja. She'd been sleeping in a wooden shelter behind a small shop, a bit far from that road. Yet, even with all her struggles, she noticed the man by the car and stopped. She saw the car hood open and the worried man beside it, pressing buttons on his car key and looking into the engine as if searching for something. She stood for a moment, then took a deep breath and crossed the road. Joshua looked up when he heard footsteps. "Good evening, sir," Stella said gently. Joshua stared at her, too shocked to reply. "Sir," she asked calmly, "do you need help?" Joshua paused, looking at her again. He didn't know whether to trust her or send her away. Instead of answering, he asked, "Young lady, what's your name, and what do you know about a car engine?" Stella smiled slightly. "Sir, I think you're judging a book by its cover." Joshua froze. That one sentence hit him hard. He took a step back and looked at her again, dirty slippers, old clothes, a hungry face, but her words were powerful. He let out a small sigh and explained, "I was driving back from a business meeting. Everything was fine until the car just went off. No sound, no smoke, nothing. It just stopped, and it hasn't started again." Stella nodded. "I understand," she said. "By the way, my name is Stella." Joshua gave her a small smile. "I'm Joshua." He then stepped aside and said, "Let's see what you can find." Stella walked closer to the car and carefully looked inside the engine. Joshua watched her, still unsure if this was a good idea, but he stayed quiet. Stella gently touched some wires and looked closely at the battery. Then, she noticed something. A wire had come loose. It was a simple thing, but it could prevent the whole car from starting. Without wasting time, she carefully fixed the wire back in place. "Okay, sir," she said, "you can try now." Joshua blinked. "Are you sure?" Stella nodded. "Yes, go ahead." Joshua walked to the driver's side, opened the door, sat down, and turned the key. The engine came on. The car started like nothing had happened. Joshua quickly jumped out and stared at the engine. "You fixed it?" he asked. Stella nodded again, smiling. It was just a small loose wire. Joshua couldn't believe it. This girl, who looked like she didn't have a dime, had just fixed his expensive car. He reached into his car, pulled out some money, and handed it to her. Take this, he said, please. But Stella took a step back. No, sir, she said gently, I only helped because I could. Kindness is not meant to be sold. Joshua stood there, shocked. He had met many people, rich people, smart people, powerful people, but very few would help without asking for something in return. This girl was different, and he knew he would never forget her. Joshua looked at Stella again, her words still echoing in his mind, kindness is not meant to be sold. He pulled out a small white card from his wallet and held it out to her. Take this, he said. Come to Joshwick Petroleum Limited tomorrow morning. Ask for me. My name is Joshua. The address is on the card. Stella looked at the card, her hand shaking a little as she took it. She didn't say anything, her eyes confused. Joshua smiled gently. Don't worry, just come. Stella slowly nodded. She looked at the card again, then carefully placed it inside the small bag she always carried. Thank you, sir, she finally said. Joshua stepped into his car. As he drove off, he looked at her in the mirror. He didn't know why, but something in his heart told him he would see her again. That night, Stella sat on the cold floor inside the wooden shelter where she slept. The wind was blowing. She opened her small bag and took out the card. She looked at it again for the fourth time, slowly reading the name, Joshwick Petroleum Limited. She sighed. Then, she reached into her sack and pulled out the only food she had left, half a loaf of dry bread, no butter, just water. She took a bite and sat back, thinking. All week, she had been going to the construction site where she worked as a laborer, but for days now, there had been no work. The man in charge said the building materials hadn't arrived, so no job, no payment. She looked at the bread in her hand and then at the card again. If I had taken that money Joshua offered me, she whispered to herself, maybe I would have eaten well tonight. But then she shook her head. No, she said softly, if I had taken that money, then my help would feel like business, like I only helped him for something. She closed her eyes, then opened them and looked at the card again. Something inside her said, go, try. You have nothing to lose. She placed the card back in her bag and whispered, I'll go. The next morning, Stella woke up very early. After getting ready, she made her way to Joshwick Petroleum Limited. She stood in front of the gate for a while, holding the card tightly in her hand. The building looked too big, too shiny, too rich. But she took a deep breath and walked to the gate. 2 security men stood there. As soon as they saw her worn-out slippers and faded dress, they started laughing. Madam, are you lost? One of them said. This place is not for beggars. Stella held up the card quickly. I came to see Mr. Joshua, she said. The second man laughed louder. You mean who? Joshua, the boss? How is that possible? Stella felt embarrassed. People walking by were starting to stare. I met him yesterday, he gave me this card, she said, her voice shaking. But the guards didn't believe her. Stella didn't know what else to say. Her heart started beating fast. She felt like turning back, but she didn't. In his office on the 3rd floor, Joshua stood by the window talking with one of his staff. Then, something caught his eye. He looked down and saw a young lady at the gate. He looked again, and his eyes widened. That's her, he shouted. Before the staff could say anything, Joshua had already rushed out. He didn't wait for the elevator, he ran down the stairs 3 steps at a time. The guards at the gate were still arguing with Stella when the big office doors burst open. Joshua ran out, pointing at her. Hey, let her in, he said. The guards turned in shock. This girl, one of them asked. Yes, Joshua said, she's my guest. Let her in. The guards quickly opened the gate. We are sorry, sir, they said, we didn't know. Joshua didn't answer them. He turned to Stella. Why didn't you call me? He asked gently. I don't have a phone, she said, looking down. He nodded. Come with me. Stella followed him slowly. She had never entered such a big building before. The floor was shining, the glass doors open on their own, and people wore suits and greeted Joshua with respect. Stella held her small bag tightly. She felt shy, she felt small. But Joshua turned to her and smiled. "Don't worry," he said, "you're safe here." When they got to Joshua's office, he opened the door and asked Stella to sit down. She sat slowly, her eyes moving around the big office. It was clean, bright, and smelled nice. She had never entered a place like that before. Joshua sat across from her. He looked at her gently. "How are you feeling today?" he asked. "I'm fine, sir," she said quietly. He nodded. "Tell me about yourself. Your family. Where do you stay?" Stella looked down. "I don't have a family. I grew up in an orphanage. When I turned 18, I had to leave. Since then, I've just been trying to survive." Joshua's eyes became serious. "That must be hard," he said. She nodded. "Did you go to any school after the orphanage?" She shook her head. "No, sir. I only finished secondary school. I wanted to go further, but there was no money. I had to work to feed myself." Joshua was quiet for a while. He tapped his fingers on the table, thinking. Then he looked at her again. "Stella, I want to help you, but I don't just want to give you money. I want to help your future." She blinked fast. "Sir, I'll get you a personal teacher," he continued, "someone who will teach you and prepare you for the exams you need to enter university." Stella opened her mouth, but no words came out. "I also want you to start working here in the garage," Joshua added. "It's a cleaning job, nothing too hard. You'll be paid every month, and I'll give you a room in the staff quarters so you don't have to sleep on the street again." Her lips shook. "Sir, thank you, sir." Joshua smiled. "You deserve a better life, Stella. Let's start from here." From that day, Stella began a new life. She cleaned the garage early every morning, making sure the tools were in order and the floors were clean. When her tutor came, she took notes and asked questions. She wanted to learn and change her story, so she worked, studied, and prayed. One hot afternoon, the garage was full of noise and laughter. A staff member named James had a flat tire. He was sweating and didn't know what to do. "Where's the jack?" James shouted. "It's there," another staff member replied, pointing to a corner. Stella walked over quietly. "Let me help," she said. James looked at her, surprised. "You sure?" Stella nodded. "I know how to do it." She picked up the tools and knelt beside the tire. She worked fast and carefully, knowing what to loosen and how to fix it. In 10 minutes, the tire was changed. Unbeknownst to her, Joshua had walked in. He stopped at the door and watched everything. When Stella stood up and wiped her hands, Joshua walked over. "Stella," he said. She turned around quickly. "Sir?" He looked at the tire, then at her. "Where did you learn all this?" She smiled. "I had a friend, he was a mechanic. I used to help him in his workshop before he went back to his village." Joshua smiled too. "You just keep surprising me." Stella laughed a little and looked away shyly. But deep inside Joshua's heart, something warm had started growing. He wasn't just impressed, he was proud. And for the first time in a long while, he was interested, really interested. From that day, Joshua began to watch Stella more closely. He didn't make it too obvious, but he noticed everything. She cleaned the garage every morning before others arrived. She never complained about anything. She greeted everyone with a smile, even the ones who looked down on her. When there was no work, Stella would go to a corner by the side of the building with her books on her lap. She read slowly, moving her finger along each line so she wouldn't miss a word. Sometimes she would help the older staff carry tools. Sometimes she would clean places out of her job description. But what caught Joshua's heart the most was how she treated people. She was always kind. She didn't gossip. She didn't act like she was better than anyone. Even when someone insulted her, she just smiled and walked away. One day, he stood at the window of his office, watching her sweep the corner near the generator house. She didn't see him, she was focused. He smiled to himself. "How can someone go through so much," he said quietly, "and still have such a good heart?" There was something different about her, and for the first time in a long while, Joshua made a gentle decision. One Friday afternoon, Joshua called his driver. "Tell Stella to meet me in front of the building. I want her to follow me for lunch," he said. The driver blinked. "Sir, Stella from the garage?" "Yes, go now." 5 minutes later, Stella stood outside, wiping her hands on her clothes. She looked confused. "Sir, you sent for me?" she asked. Joshua smiled. "Yes, I'm going for lunch. Come with me." Her eyes widened. "Sir? Me to lunch?" "Yes, just lunch. Don't be afraid." She nodded slowly and followed him into the car. They drove to a quiet restaurant not far from the office. It was beautiful, soft music played in the background. Stella looked around, feeling out of place. When the food came, she stared at the knife and fork. Joshua noticed. "Do you want me to show you how to use it?" he asked kindly. She looked down, embarrassed. I don't really know how." "That's okay," he said, smiling. "Let me show you." He gently took her hand and showed her how to hold the fork. She laughed a little. "I feel like a child." "No," he said softly, "you're just learning, and there's nothing wrong with that." They ate quietly for a while, then he asked, "How are the home lessons going?" "Very well, sir," she replied. "My teacher says I'm improving. I'm trying hard." "I can see that," Joshua said. "You're doing well." They talked more about books, her dreams, her past at the orphanage, and her hope to become something more. There was no pressure, just a simple lunch. But something had started to grow, not just respect, but something deeper. And they both felt it, even though no one said a word about it yet. But something began to happen at the company. It started with whispers. Staff would look at Stella and whisper behind her back, "Why is the boss always smiling at her? Did you see him walk into the garage again today? What's so special about her?" Some even laughed and called her names when she walked by. But Stella kept quiet. She didn't answer anyone, she just kept doing her job. However, one person wasn't just whispering, she was burning with anger. Victoria, Joshua's personal assistant, watched from her office window every day. She had worked with Joshua for 2 years. She always dressed well. She always spoke softly when he was around. She always brought him tea, even when he didn't ask. But Joshua never looked at her twice. Now, this girl, this poor, uneducated girl from the street, was the one getting his attention. Victoria's heart boiled. One evening, when Joshua was in his office alone, Victoria knocked and stepped in. "Sir, can I speak with you?" she asked sweetly. Joshua looked up. "Yes, Victoria, what is it?" She sat down slowly. "I just want to tell you something important. It's about Stella." Joshua raised his head. "What about her?" Victoria leaned forward. "Sir, please don't be upset, but you need to be careful. These street girls, they know how to act innocent. They pretend to be kind, but their eyes are always on money." Joshua stared at her. "She's using you," Victoria said in a low voice. "People like her, they always come with a plan." There was silence in the room. Joshua sat back, still staring at her. Then he said quietly, "Thank you, Victoria. You may go now." Victoria stood up slowly. "Yes, sir." As she closed the door, she smiled to herself. But what she didn't know was that Joshua didn't believe a word she said. Joshua sat at a table with 3 of his business partners in a private lounge. They were all older men, rich and powerful, who had helped him grow his company when he first started. They were like family to him. After talking about a new deal, one of them cleared his throat. "Joshua," he said, "can we speak as elders now?" Joshua nodded. "Of course." The man leaned in. "We've been hearing things about a girl." Joshua looked at them. "A cleaner at your company," another added. "She's the one people say you're always around." Joshua smiled lightly but said nothing. "We know you're a good man," the first one continued, "but you must be careful. You're not just anyone, you are a big name in business now." Another one spoke, "If people begin to spread stories, it won't be good for your image. You know how this country is." Joshua folded his hands. "I understand your concern," he said. "But Stella is just someone I'm helping. She has no family, no education, no support." One of them shook his head. "Yes, help her, but don't get too close. People won't understand it. People will twist it," another warned. "You know how fast news spreads." Joshua stayed calm. "I've heard you," he said. "I will handle it." They nodded and changed the topic. But as they spoke about other things, Joshua's mind was far away. He looked down at his glass and thought to himself, why is the world always ready to judge what it doesn't understand? He knew he had to be careful, but he also knew something else. He was beginning to care about Stella more than he expected. Stella heard the whispers. She saw how people looked at her. Some laughed behind her, some called her names. Desperate cleaner, who does she think she is? She wants to trap the boss. Every day at work felt heavier. She would smile in front of others, but her heart was tired. She didn't want trouble, she didn't ask for any of this. That night, she sat alone in her small corner at the staff quarters, her hands shaking. She held her lesson books in her lap and stared at them. School was the only thing that gave her hope, but even that wasn't enough anymore. I didn't come here to be insulted, she said to herself. She thought about her life, no parents, no real friends, no home of her own. And now everyone at work looked at her like she was a thief, like she stole something that wasn't hers. She tried to be strong, but she was tired. That night, while everyone slept, she folded her clothes quietly into her bag. She placed her books on top and zipped it up. She looked around her small space one last time, then walked out slowly into the night, without telling anyone. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay there anymore. Joshua walked into the company the next morning with a smile, ready to ask Stella about her lesson work. But when he got to the garage, she wasn't there. He asked another cleaner, "Have you seen Stella today?" The man shook his head. "No, sir. She didn't come to work." Joshua checked her room at the staff quarters. It was empty, the bed was neat, her bag was gone. He felt a strong pain in his chest. He called her number, it was switched off. He called again, still off. He drove back to the same street where he met her the first time. He sat in his car for hours, watching the road, hoping she would walk by. But she didn't come. Day after day, he kept going back there, morning, evening, night. He asked the people who walked by, "Have you seen a girl called Stella?" He described her. Some said no, some just shook their heads. The phone he gave her had stayed off since she left. His heart was heavy. He couldn't sleep well. He missed her voice, he missed her laugh. But more than anything, he missed the peace he felt each time he was around her. And now she was gone. It had been 3 long weeks since Stella disappeared. Joshua had searched everywhere. He asked the cleaners, the kitchen staff, even the gate man, but no one had seen her. Then, one Tuesday morning, while Joshua stood by the company car park, one of the company bus drivers walked up to him quietly. "Good morning, sir," the driver said. Joshua nodded. "Good morning." The driver looked around and lowered his voice. "Sir, I saw that girl." Joshua's eyes widened. "What girl?" "The cleaner, the one they used to call Stella." Joshua stepped closer. "Where did you see her?" "Yesterday evening, around 5 p.m. She was at a construction site in a remote part of the city. I was driving past when I saw her. She was working at the construction site." Joshua's heart jumped. Are you sure it was her? I'm very sure, sir. I even slowed down to look well. It was her. Joshua didn't waste time. He pulled his car key from his pocket and held it out to the driver. Take me there now. The drive to the area felt long. Joshua didn't speak much. He kept looking out the window, his hands tight on his lap. When they got to the construction site, Joshua stepped out. The sound of hammers and shovels filled the air. Men were moving sand, carrying blocks, mixing cement. Then he saw her, Stella. She was wearing a big, old t-shirt and a long brown skirt. On her head was a block, a heavy one. She was walking slowly across the site. Joshua stood still, his eyes following her every step. She looked thinner, her face looked tired, but her eyes still held that quiet strength. He felt his chest tighten. What kind of woman is this, he thought. I gave her a chance to go to school. I gave her an opportunity for a better life. But when that life brought her shame and pain, she walked away with nothing. And now she's here, carrying blocks like a man. Tears pushed at his eyes, but he blinked them away. He took a step forward, then another, and then he called out, Stella. Stella looked up at Joshua, her hands shaking. She slowly bent down and dropped the block from her head. Then she wiped her face with her dirty sleeve and asked softly, How did you find me? Joshua took a step closer. She didn't look him in the eye. I left that side of the city on purpose, she said quietly. I didn't want to bring you shame again. I knew I didn't belong in your world. Joshua looked at her with so much care. He took her hand gently. Stella, he said, you don't belong on the street either. You belong in my life. Before she could reply, Joshua pulled her close and hugged her right there at the construction site. He didn't care about the dust on her body. He didn't care that her clothes were dirty. He held her like someone who had found something very special. The workers on the site all stopped what they were doing. One of them whispered, Wait, is that not Stella? Another one said, How does she know this rich man? They all watched in surprise, but Joshua didn't even notice them. He looked at Stella again and said, Get in the car. She shook her head lightly. Joshua, But he stopped her. Please, Stella, get in the car. She looked at his face, then smiled a little and quietly followed him to the car. Joshua turned to the driver and said, Let's go. They drove straight to a big boutique. Joshua picked out clothes for her, new dresses, shoes, and even a nice bag. Stella just stood there, speechless. After shopping, he said, There's somewhere else I want to show you. Soon they arrived at a beautiful, short-term apartment. It was quiet, clean, and full of bright light. His younger sister, Anita, who managed the place, came out smiling. Joshua said, She will be staying here for now. Anita nodded and handed the key to Stella. Stella walked in slowly and looked around. The room was like a dream, a soft bed, a small kitchen, and a sweet smell in the air. She turned to Joshua with tears in her eyes. Joshua, this is too much, she said. But he smiled and said, You're not going back to the company. She blinked. What? Joshua stepped closer. You've done enough hard work. Now I'll set up a business for you, something you can run while going to school. Stella covered her mouth with her hand. She couldn't believe it. This was the same girl who used to sleep outside in the cold. Now, someone cared enough to give her a second chance. And this time, she wasn't going to run away. 1 year later, Stella stood outside the university gate with a big smile on her face. She wore a simple white shirt and blue jeans, and in her bag was her student ID card. She had just finished her morning class in mechanical engineering. She looked happy and full of life. Things had changed. She now walked with confidence. Joshua arrived in his car to pick her up, like he always did. When she saw him, her eyes lit up. Hey, he said, smiling as he opened the car door for her. Good afternoon, Joshua, she said, getting in. How was class today? He asked as he started the car. It was great. We did practicals. I fixed a small engine, she replied, laughing. Joshua looked at her with pride. I knew it. You've always had a gift with machines. She smiled. Thank you for everything, for not giving up on me. Joshua shook his head gently. Stella, I didn't help you out of pity. I saw your strength when you were fixing my car that day. I saw something real in you. They drove in silence for a while, then Joshua pulled over by the beach. He looked into her eyes. Stella, he said softly, this 1 year with you has been the best part of my life. I want to do more than just support you. I want to build a life with you, if you'll let me. Tears filled Stella's eyes. She nodded slowly. Yes, Joshua, I will. He took her hand and smiled. The sun shone behind them as the waves hit the shore gently. From a homeless girl to a student, from pain to purpose, Stella had found love, peace, and a new life. And this time, she knew she truly belonged. Dear friends, this story teaches us something very profound. Never look down on anyone. That girl you see on the street today might be the woman sitting in a boardroom tomorrow. Just like Stella, many people aren't lazy, they just need a little help and someone to believe in them. Also, true love isn't about money or status. Joshua saw Stella's heart, not her clothes, not where she slept, but who she really was. And that is what love should be. So tell me, what did you learn from this story? Please drop your thoughts in the comments section. I would really love to read from you. You might even help someone else with your words. There's another very interesting story coming up in just a few days, so please subscribe to my channel and turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I upload it. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and share it with your friends and loved ones. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate you.